How's it going, everyone? Yosef back here with another video, and I hope you're having an amazing week so far. Today, boy, do I have something special for you. We've got behind us the 2022 Porsche 911 GT3. Now, this is something that is so special, and I am so incredibly grateful that I have the chance to go and take this out for a drive and give you a review about it. Now, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to this car. This is a car brand that has gotten so much criticism over the years. People complain that they're too much of the same car. Porsche never really cares about designing something new. They're the laziest designers in the world. They're so expensive. They're not really that unique. You know, sometimes people even complain that they're, I don't know, just too good and they're not as exciting to drive. But the interesting thing is there are so many people that are die-hard fans of the 911, and it's so interesting to see how that's grown and developed over the years as this car behind me has developed since it came out. And I was always really curious because I am not a huge Porsche fan, but I've also never really had an opportunity to go and experience something like this, the 911 GT3. So today we're going to go on a bit of a journey to find out, what do all those Porsche 911 GT3 lovers really think about this car? Why do they care about it so much? And why is it such an amazing track car? And hopefully by the end of the video today, we'll better understand all of the amazing engineering that's behind it and understand how it all comes together and why those little tweaks that they've made over the years were not just because of laziness or because they couldn't think of something better to make other than this design, but it's truly because they've come up with a masterpiece, something that's incredible, that has taken years and decades to develop, and little tweaks over time to perfect. Are you ready? Let's go. All right, so let's dive into the Porsche 911 GT3 that we have here. Now, there are a lot of amazing things about it, but there is one major flaw that we're going to talk about at the end of the video, so stay tuned. But until we get there, let's talk a little bit about what this is. So Porsche has been designing the 911 for many, many years. It's been around since 1963, and since then, they've always sort of looked and felt the same. They've grown a little bit in size, they've been modernized, and a few bits and pieces have changed, but otherwise, if you stand from afar and look at them, they always seem about the same, and that's what's so iconic about this car. It's amazing, but there are so many different variations of them. There are some with a lot of power, there's some with less, and this one in particular, because the track-focused version is a little bit lighter and more special than some of the other 911 models. Now, this one in particular has a naturally aspirated engine. It's a 4-liter straight 6 that produces just over 500 horsepower, and it's incredibly because it's not the most powerful car, but because of the aero and the way that it's designed and the lightness, it is incredibly fast. And you can see the beautiful wheels over there, the wing that we've taken a look at just moments ago. There are so many great things about this vehicle that make it so special and unique and just separate it from the other 911s. Now, in terms of performance, I know we talked a little bit about the engine size, but 500 horsepower doesn't seem like a lot in today's world, but this car can go from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds, which is rapid. That is really fast for a car. And it's able to do that because it's got some incredible grip from the tires, the suspension, from the design of the car and all the aero, but it also has a really fast dual clutch transmission. And that's something that allows it to make those snappy gear shifts and launch the car as quick as it can. So we understand that this is a fast car, but is it really a supercar? Because if you had $200,000 or $250,000 to spend on a car, would you buy a 911 GT3, or would you buy an Audi R8 or a Lamborghini Huracan or a Ferrari 488? There's a lot of other options, and to be a supercar, it has to be special, and this car is. It's very expensive, it's exclusive. It also comes with most amazing high revving engines that you can buy on the market today. The only other car that has a 9,000 RPM redline is the Lamborghini Revuelto that just came out, and that's in a different territory. So to put it into perspective, my Golf R only revs up to 6,500 RPM. So this one is really special, and it's subtle, which is part of its great appeal. So a few interesting things to take a look at. Right off the bat, the wheels in this GT3 are rather unique because what you'll notice is there's a center cap here, and that's not just covering up a piece of plastic or a few little bolts. This is called center lock wheels, and those center lock wheels are typically reserved for race cars, and this car, because it's a track focused car, actually has that same technology that you would get in a Formula One car or some other form of race car. And that one little GT3 badge that's covering up that bolt, that is the only thing that's keeping the wheel connected to the car. And if you look even closer, you've got these really beautiful ceramic brakes. These aren't your average brakes. These are brakes that cost a lot of money, but they are incredibly well suited for the racetrack. They don't fade as much, they have incredible stopping performance, and they are rather unique, and it's something that you really need if you're going to take this car on a track. And so that's something that is an option, but it's a really cool one that you got with this car. Now you'll also notice that the brake calipers are painted. That is always something that I enjoy, and especially compared to the rest of the car, when it's black, you've got really nice color contrasting that goes along with it. And overall, I think the style of this car is really cool. It's just subtle. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy about the 911. It's not a big sort of look at me type of car. This is the type of vehicle that you can go around and people who know. Those who don't, well, it's just another 911. It's just another Porsche, but it's subtle and aggressive at the same time. There are a few really cool things on the front of this vehicle that I wanted to point out. One of them is these vents that you've got on the hood. This is one of the things that separates this car from some of the other 911s in the lineup. And those vents are designed to really channel air from the front of that grille that you see here all the way over the car to keep it planted as you're driving along on the track. And you also have these functional vents on the side that allow you to cool the brakes. The lights are also really unique. Now, normally lights are not super interesting, but these special upgraded lights that came with this 911 GT3 are incredible looking. They have got so much detail around them, and you've got the Porsche logo in there, which to me is really cool. It's their matrix LED system that allows them to be very, very precise, super bright, and I think just adds to the look of the car. Now, if we take a look at the rear of the GT3, this is one of its distinctive sort of unique features of the car. You've got a really nice tail end, and the lights are so interesting. They've got a lot of design character to them, and they have a great light signature, of course, with that light bar that goes all the way across the car to the other side. And that's something that allows it to be a little bit more modern, but still staying relatively true to the way that the design used to be when it first launched. And if you take a look at the back, you also have that beautiful wing that's hanging off the back. And what makes this wing so special is the way that it's hinged. Most spoilers are sort of hanging on from the bottom, but this one is hanging on from the the top in what we call a swan neck sort of style. And the GT3 RS has a similar one, but a little bit bigger. This one is really subtle, but it also gives you that very cool styling effect, and it's great for aerodynamics, and it does a much better job at letting the air flow over and under and keep the car gripped to the ground when you're driving really fast on a racetrack. And it just looks very cool. It's also adjustable, which is unique. Not every spoiler on cars are adjustable, and this one is. You can change the degree that the spoiler sort of angles itself. So if you wanted to set it up perfectly for a specific track, you have the ability to do that as well. And to do that, all you have to do is adjust those little screws that you see over there, and it allows you to change the angle of the wing. And when you go a little bit lower down over here, of course, you've got a really nice 4.0 logo on the engine cover. Now you can't open this engine bay up. This is something that only a mechanic at Porsche could do, but it's really nice to see that logo to tell you, yes, you've got a 4-liter straight 6 engine. And one other touch that's really cool about this car is you've got the dual exit center mounted exhaust. And those two exhaust tips look so cool in this car, and they sound pretty amazing. Let's take a listen. That was pretty awesome, and we'll hear more of that as we go for a drive. But now let's take a look at the diffuser over here. Such a cool other feature of the car that just makes it look super sporty, and it's functional. It helps make sure that the car stays stable when you're driving super fast on the racetrack. Now looking at the interior of the car, even though this is a performance track-oriented car, you've got some really nice luxury touches, and they also contribute to the weight savings, but I think they look really cool. So first off, you've got this Alcantara material just on the door cards here, which looks really nice and premium. You've got really nice buttons over here for the switchgear when you've got to open the windows and play around with your mirror settings, and you've got some really nice carbon fiber that's lining the door trim as well. And of course, you can't forget about the stitching. Now all of this stuff is customizable. When you get this car, you can order with a million different options and choose how exactly you want it, and that's one of the cool things about it. It really makes every experience with a GT3 or a 911 that you purchase unique. And you have these beautiful sills over here that allow you to put that GT3 logo, and everything is color matched, which is really cool. So the stitching, the seat belts, everything is the same color, and that to me just adds a lot of personality. Now you can do a review of this car without noticing the beautiful carbon fiber bucket seats that were optioned in this particular GT3. It's hard for it to come out on camera, but they are just stunning. They're really, really nice. One piece of carbon fiber that lines the entire seat, and you've got that really nice padding that of course is going to hold you tight on the track, and the Alcantara in the middle that's perforated so that you get a little ventilation as you're going around and you don't get stuck to your seat with the sweat. Now let's take a look at the steering wheel for a minute, because Porsche does an amazing job at making steering wheels. Now, not only is the steering wheel the perfect size and just feel really great in the hand, but they put physical buttons over there, and they're actually kind of floating around there, which looks really neat, and it's functional. It allows you to get whatever you need with the buttons super easily instead of having to go through menus or touch buttons, things like that. And you've got the drive mode selector over there, which is really cool. That just adds to the excitement of the steering wheel. Now, if we shift our focus just a little bit over to the left, you'll see this thing that's sticking out over there that kind of looks like the back of a key. Back in the day, when Porsche used to design cars for the racetrack, they used to have the key over there on the left side, which is sort of the opposite of every other car in the world, because in Le Mans races, they had to run to the car, stick the key in, turn it on, and drive off. And this was a more efficient way of doing it. So they decided to keep that trend and tradition and have every Porsche going forward have that key fob sort of looking thing sticking out so that you turn the car on with that instead of pressing a button. And that to me is just really awesome. Now, in keeping with the heritage of making older cars look really modern, I'm going to get into the car for a second. I want to show you the gauge cluster, because that to me is really special. Now, keeping with the theme of old traditions and carrying them forward into modern cars, if we take a look at the gauge cluster, for example, you'll notice there are 5 dials there. 4 of them are digital. 1 of them is a physical dial. It's the tachometer, straight in the middle, exactly where you would want to see it. But it's flanked by those 4 other digital dials, and I love the way they've done that physical tachometer. I think it looks really cool. It's almost like an expensive piece of watch or jewelry, and I think they've done a really nice job of blending it with the digital versions of them on the left and right hand side of it. And the cool thing about this is you've got that physical tachometer, but you also have the ability to use those screens for modern modern day things like putting the map there, for example. Now you'll probably notice there's this clock looking thing just sticking out of the dashboard over here. And you're probably wondering, is it a clock? What is it? And the answer to that is it's actually a lap timer. They have a physical dial here that you can use as a lap timer if you'd like, which is a really cool addition to the sort of analog digital experience. And if you take a look a little bit lower down, you'll see there's another screen for the infotainment, which is really nice, very high quality and high resolution. And you've got these physical buttons, which look like toggle switches that allow you to adjust a whole bunch of different things throughout the car, like your suspension, for example, your traction control, your hazard lights. And I love the way that Porsche has integrated all of these things, these tactile feeling buttons, along with this modern interior. They've done such a great job with that, and they feel really nice to touch, and proves that you can do physical buttons in a modern car. And of course, you've got the air vents that you can move around manually instead of having to go into a screen to do that. And to me, the packaging and the way that this car looks is just really beautiful. It's so nice to have a mixture of that clean, sort of very German styling, but also having the ability to control things with standard buttons, with things that you can use physically instead of having to go into all these menus and change up. And you've got this carbon fiber that's all around the interior of this car, and to me that just makes it's so special to look at. And of course, you're always reminded that you're driving a GT3 because you've got the logos all over the car, and in case of an accident, you've got a fire extinguisher. So overall, the interior of this car is really nice. Now, the one thing that you have to understand is this is a track focused car, so the comfort level is going to be a little different from your normal daily driver. This is not one that you're going to go on very long road trips with because you've got these carbon fiber bucket seats, but they are surprisingly comfortable for what they are. Sitting here, I don't actually feel very uncomfortable being in them. The padding is really nice, even though it's not super plush. And to be honest with you, they just look very cool. So anyways, that is what I have to say about the interior of the car. It is a special place to be. And you know that it's a really performance-oriented car when everything is set up like it is. Now, I know we can talk forever about the interior of the car and sort of my thoughts about it, but what you're probably all waiting for is to see how this car drives. So let's go for a drive. Now, I wanted to take a moment to reflect on a couple quick things just as we're going for our drive, and that is getting in this car, it really feels super special. I mean, going into these carbon fiber bucket seats, they really hold you very tight, they're super snug, and they don't have a lot of adjustability, but regardless of that, they actually are relatively comfortable. The padding is great, it's soft, there isn't much lumbar support, so I wouldn't want to sit in there for a very long time, but overall, the feeling of them is really interesting and very helpful, I'm sure, if you were on a track. Now again, this car is intimidating because of the price and how much performance it's got and just the way it makes you feel, but getting into it, it's not a difficult car to drive. I've been in McLarens, I've been in Audi R8s, and I've been in a lot of other supercars, and to be honest with you, this one's got incredible visibility for a car that has the performance that it has. And I love the steering wheel. It just feels so nice in your hands. And I love that you've got these little floating buttons and the digital display right next to the analog tack. There's something so incredible about that. And when you look at the rearview mirror, all you see is that giant wing. So obviously, you know, visibility is a little bit impaired, but I mean, it's just so cool to see that. And even the view out of the rearview mirrors on the sides, you get to see the beautiful haunches of the car. It looks so cool and interesting. And you get to see the curves at the front of the car where the lights are, and there is definitely something very special about the way this car looks and feels. Now I'm going to put it in manual mode just so we can hear the engine a little bit. Wow. What an amazing sound. And that's not even getting up to 9,000 RPM. I'm gonna see if there's a small road over here that we can go on just to open it up a little bit more, but you know, when you get in a car like this, you expect it to be super harsh and really uncomfortable, and yes, the bucket seats are nice and tight and they really hug you, but you know, it's not as uncomfortable or as difficult to sort of enjoy as you might think. And generally speaking, the car is really compliant. It's not beating me up in here. Now, sure, the suspension setting is not in the most firm setting, but you know, it's actually quite comfortable to drive around on a daily basis. And these paddle shifters are really amazing. They're actually made of metal, and so, you know, when you touch them and you click them, they feel really, really nice, which is kind of different from what you would expect from most paddle shifters in regular cars. You know, it's a very different, engaging feeling. And a lot of times people say, you know, you got to have a manual transmission, it's the best thing. But there's a lot of engagement that you can have just driving this car along, even having an automatic transmission. And there is an option to get a manual in different versions of the GT3, but you know, I'm not missing it tremendously being in this car right now and shifting gears on my own. And I mean, you really enjoy the sound of that engine. It's quite impressive. And the steering is really sharp. And the owner of this car, he told me, you know, Yosef, it's something that you really have to get used to because it's so precise. It's so sharp that, you know, every little thing that, you know, the wheels go over, you really feel. And, you know, that's something that you really only experience when you're behind the wheel of this car. So it's quite an amazing experience. And I have to say, it's something that I've really been looking up to and I'm thoroughly enjoying. So as we're settling in and just going for a little drive, you know, what are sort of the benefits and the drawbacks of this car? Well, of course, you have, you know, amazing performance. You've got something that really is special. It looks great. There are some very cool aero components in this car, and it really does make you feel special. It's not the same sort of in-your-face look that you get from a Lamborghini or a McLaren or a Ferrari, but you know, there are some really subtle details that make this car look and feel so special. And you know, now I'm starting to understand why Porsche buyers really love their cars so much. What makes them so special and unique? It's that, you know, it's subtle. It's something that if you know about it, you know that this is something special and unique and really cool. And it really reminds me of, you know, an expensive Swiss watch. Sometimes, you know, you wear these really cool watches that you spent a lot of money on and they're really intensely engineered. Everything is meticulously designed and very cool and special. And people around you have no idea. They look at it and say, oh, well, that's a watch, that's interesting. But they don't understand what's gone into the design of it. And that really reminds me of this car. You know, decades and decades of engineering and work has gone into perfecting every inch of this car, making it so special and a track weapon that, you know, really shouldn't be possible if you think about the physics of the engine hanging off the back of the car, you know, over the rear wheels. And they've done such an unbelievable job of making it such an incredible experience. And, you know, driving it on track, I've never had that experience, but the owner has told me, you know, it's something like nothing else on the road. And I believe it. And it's very much like that watch analogy. You know, when you know and you have that watch, you can appreciate it. It's not in everybody's face, but it's something that you enjoy and understand, you know, the value of what it is and what's gone into it and how it's become and morphed into this, you know, really incredible piece of technology on your wrist. And it's not like anybody who just decides to go get, you know, a smartwatch that can do all these amazing things, but, you know, there's nothing really special about it. It's an appliance. This car is not an appliance. This car is, I mean, it is something unique and special. And that to me is really the story behind it. And I'm glad that we've had the opportunity to come in and really take a look at all the details of this car and what makes it so special. No, it's not going to have the most crazy doors and, you know, tell the child in you that you're driving something super incredible, but you know you're in something special. You know you are, with all the carbon fiber around you, the carbon fiber bucket seats, all the Alcantara everywhere, that analog tachometer, and just the way the steering wheel feels and the position that you sit driving this car and looking back at the wing behind you. I mean, that's incredible. And we're going to open it up a little bit just so you can get a sense of that engine again. Wow. Not only is this car quick, but the power delivery is just so incredible. It almost feels like an electric car. There's no turbo lag because there is no turbo. This car just gets on it right away. And it's amazing. There's such great feedback from the pedals too. You know, you've got amazing response obviously from the throttle pedal, but even the brakes, You can modulate them really well. You don't feel like you're, you know, having such a hard time with such grippy brakes. And it is something that anybody could get in and start driving and get used to. It's not so scary like you might think it is, but the experience is very, very special. And so to sum up this car, I have to say that, you know, I always looked at Porsches as they're really nice, they're interesting, they're beautiful in their own right, but they were never really special to me. And having had the opportunity now to get in this car and really drive it, I can truly appreciate and understand what the Porsche lovers, you know, understand and appreciate when it comes to driving this car. It is something that is very unique, and it is different from everything else on the road. And sure, you can get something that's more expensive, and sure, you can get something that is more powerful nowadays, but I mean, there is something really, really special about this. And I'm starting to understand what people really love about them. Wait, hold up. I know you're probably thinking, Yosef, you promised that you would tell me about the biggest flaw of this car, and you're right. So here we go. Here's the biggest flaw with the Porsche 911 GT3. It is wonderful. We talked about all the great things about it, but the biggest flaw is the fact that nobody can buy it. It's such a rare car. It's so hard to get. Even if you have unlimited money and you go to the Porsche dealership and you say, I want to get a GT3 or GT3 RS, you have to have bought many before. You have to be sort of a reserved customer almost for them on the special list to be able to get one of these. And that's what's sad to me. You've got an incredible car, something that's a track weapon that, you know, delivers power like nothing else. And nobody really gets to experience it except the select few that are able to own this car. And so that to me is really sad and one of the biggest flaws. There are a lot of driving enthusiasts out there, people who love to take their cars to the track and enjoy a really great experience. And they'll never be able to do that in a car like this because it'll be almost impossible for them to get one. So I am really fortunate that the owner of this car has given me the opportunity to do just that. And I know I'm not on a track, but just to get to drive this car and feel it and explore the engine and take a look at all the details, I mean, that's something I would have never been able to do had I not known somebody who was willing to do that. And so huge shout out to the owner. I truly, truly appreciate it. And so I hope that one day more people have the ability to experience a 911 GT3 because it really is a special car for what it is. And so I'm going to leave you with that. And I'm going to share with you a couple clips of me sitting passenger while the owner of the car opens it up a little bit more so you can just feel that excitement that I got enjoying this car today. And with that, I'm going to thank you all so much for taking the time to watch the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. For me, this was a very special experience, and I can't wait to see you all in the next video. That's incredible.